Hey there, welcome to my channel. I'm Meg, and today I wanted to make a video that's a little bit different from the videos I normally make. So, if you're familiar with my channel, I work in cybersecurity, and all of my videos are about cybersecurity and helping people to get into the cybersecurity field, discussing cybersecurity certifications, discussing education, all of those kind of things. However, one thing that I also want to put out onto the internet and share with the world is my experience being an American who just moved to Europe, specifically Spain, right before the pandemic happened in 2020. I feel like I want to make this for myself, but also to document it for other people who are in a similar situation, because I know there are a lot of expats distributed around the world who are going through a similar thing with the pandemic and not being in their home country. So I wanted to note this down for looking back on it, honestly. I don't have any kids right now, but perhaps I will in 5 or 10 years, or I just wanna be able to share this experience and remember it and look back on it, so cheers to documenting it. So I moved to Spain in late December of 2019, and I did it for work. I was working, or I still work for a international company that's headquartered in the United States. I was working at the headquarter office in Florida, and basically the opportunity came to relocate to Spain to do the same job, just to do it in a different continent, in a different environment with different members of the team, because we do have a lot of our cybersecurity team members located in Spain. And so my husband and I, sold our home in Florida. We both sold our cars. We sold a lot of our belongings. We basically said goodbye to our families and we went to Spain. Now, I arrived in Spain about a month before my husband did, and that was just for the sake and matters of kind of finishing up some things that needed to be done in Florida that he was working on. And when I got to Spain, I was blessed enough and so happy to be able to stay with my manager and his wife. So that was amazing because I do have my dog. So, trying to find a hotel or a hostel where you can stay for an extended period of time with a dog is a little bit tough. So thankfully, I was able to do that for the first month. And in December, there was nothing really being heard in Spain about the coronavirus, at least to what I remember. In January, I found a house to live in, which is amazing because if you know anything about Europe, finding a house specifically in a lot of the larger cities that are more touristy, it's very, very complicated to do, and they're also really expensive. So we were really thrilled to be able to find a house that has a yard that's fenced in for our dog, and neither of us have ever lived in apartments before. So for us, even though we were willing to look at an apartment, it was just so lucky and such a right thing to happen for us to find a house. So we moved into the house, and my husband came to Spain in the middle of January, so about 1 year ago now. And again, at that point in January, little to none, I don't think anything was being heard of in Spain about the coronavirus. I think it was the end of February and early March when we started hearing specifically that there was a virus in Italy and it was not good. And so at that time, we were still going into the office for work because, I mean, we have a local office here where majority of people were going into the office even though we still had the option to work from home like before the pandemic occurred. We were choosing to go into the office because it's a new country, new language, new people, new food. Like that was one of the parts of the experiences we were looking for, is getting to experience work culture in a different country. So personally, the organization that my husband and I, we both work for the same company, it shut down Well, I mean, the company didn't shut down. The company is obviously still running, but we stopped being able to go to the office due to some of the regulations that were put in part in Spain. And I think it was from the middle of March through the middle or end of June, basically, where Spain had these state of emergency, I think it's called, or state of alarm, and you could not leave your house for exercise. Like if you had a dog and you needed to walk your dog, then you were allowed to do so. And you were allowed to walk to the grocery store and to the pharmacy and go to the doctor. But for any other reasons other than that, you weren't allowed to leave your house. So for us, this wasn't as terrible because, like I mentioned, we do have that really big yard that is fenced in. So thankfully, we could just, go walk around the yard or take our dog outside and let her play in the yard. And again, we do have a dog, so we could take the dog on walks. However, for a lot of these people in Spain who predominantly live in flats or apartments, the equivalent, they don't have a yard and they may just have a little terrace and they couldn't go outside. So that was like I think the roughest period for a lot of people was from March to June, and that's where you got all the videos that you probably saw circulating on Facebook and Reddit and those kind of platforms about the people who were singing on their terraces, and I think it was a gentleman who was singing the Titanic song about "My Heart Will Go On" and playing the piano. That's where a lot of that was born because people couldn't go on walks. I mean, I understand the rest of the world was on lockdown too, but um, I believe, from my understanding, someone correct me if I'm wrong, in the majority of countries, you were still allowed to leave your house to go exercise. So that wasn't allowed during that time here in Spain. And then from June onwards, it's been really a on and off of lockdown, but nothing as serious as what was happening in the March through June timeframe. Like even now, when it's early January 2021, we're not allowed to leave our city. So that's to say, if you live in Barcelona, you're not allowed to leave Barcelona. That kind of ordeal. So I think everything is pretty much closed down that's non-essential. So if it's not a pharmacy, a supermarket, or a doctor, then the shops aren't allowed to be open right now. None of the malls are open. I don't think the restaurants you're allowed to actually go to them and have dinner at them. Right now, I believe they're just open to where you could physically go in for breakfast and lunch. And the rest of the time, it's, takeout or delivery. And yeah, still not allowed to go back to the office, even though there were some intermittent periods there where we could go back to the office. Um, it's been very interesting experiencing the pandemic in a country that we are not natively from, where we don't speak the language very well. Because we arrived here just a couple of months before the pandemic, we didn't have much time to get a feel for things. The time that we were here pre pandemic, we were getting our house settled, getting our dog settled, trying to get the right paperwork done, going around to the different government offices to do legality things. So we didn't have a lot of time or really any time to do anything that people would normally do when they move to a new country, go check out all the tourist places and go try all the different new foods and, just kind of do the fun things. We haven't really had that much of an opportunity to do it. So I mean, but it's understandable. Obviously, we take the pandemic very seriously, my husband and I, and generally we only stay inside. I think we went out to lunch a few weeks ago to celebrate for something, and if there's a birthday and it's a small group, because right now you're limited to, I think it's 6 people. If you're going to go to get lunch together at a restaurant, you can only have a maximum of 6 people. So generally, my husband and I, we just stay home with our dog. We work from home every single day. Um, Sometimes we have our groceries delivered. We had our groceries delivered for the longest time, and that's mainly because we didn't have a car. We we actually so it's kind of funny here in Europe if you're not familiar with it, but um at least in our area in Spain, because there's so few available places for cars to be put, if you want a new car, you have to go to the dealership, or what we call a dealership in America, and you basically sit down and not design, but go over the specs of the car that you want. So like what paint color, what engine, what seat color, blah blah blah. And then they have to build it, obviously depending on what kind of car you get, you might have it built in Spain, or more often you'll probably have it built in like Germany or Austria or the Czech Republic or something. And then they have to ship the car down to where you're living. So this was only supposed to take, I think, 3 months originally was the estimate. We ordered our car in February, and we didn't end up getting our car until almost September. So that's one of the things that I know, a lot of the manufacturing and logistics places were shut down, obviously due to the pandemic. So that was interesting. But we didn't have a need for a car really, other than needing to go get groceries because we weren't traveling, we weren't trying to do anything, so it wasn't that big of a deal. We do have the car now, so that's nice because we can go to the grocery store now. And I had some interesting experiences walking to supermarkets here before we had a car. So I would walk by myself to the supermarket because only one person was allowed to leave your house at a time. You couldn't have multiple people leaving the house at the same time. So I would walk to the supermarket with my backpack because we didn't have a car and I needed to get groceries. So I would just put the groceries into my backpack. And I didn't know that you needed to wear gloves in the store. Like, perhaps there was a sign, but because of my ignorance and not reading the Spanish and not seeing it, I was ignorant to it, which is completely my fault. Obviously, I had a mask on and everything, but I think I was picking up something, and some lady started shouting at me in Spanish, and I had no idea what she was saying. And then she like kind of shoved me a little bit, and so it was an interesting experience because I couldn't communicate with her to find out what was wrong or what I was doing wrong. Like, if I had known I needed to wear gloves, then I definitely would have worn gloves. I'm like the safety and precautious person, so I definitely would have followed the rules, especially for a store. I want to follow the rules and be kind and respectful to the people around me. So she literally like grabbed gloves, and when she found I couldn't speak Spanish, and shoved them onto my hands. And so I was pretty taken aback. But again, it's my fault because I don't speak Spanish well, and I'm in a country where people either speak Spanish or they speak Catalan. So it was my fault for not following the rules. It was just kind of, I don't want to say a shock to me, but it opened my eyes because it made me realize that I need to pay more attention to kind of the signs that are being posted and the people around me and that kind of thing. So that was, one of the small experiences that I had. I've had a lot of interesting new experiences here in Spain where I find that because my Spanish is not conversational yet, that it's hard, obviously, to connect with people, to communicate well or proficiently and efficiently with them. But I'm working on it. Actually, this past week, I started taking Spanish lessons, with like an actual Spanish professor. So I'm going to be doing that twice a week. And I really hope that my Spanish will improve. I'm hoping by the end of the year, actually, my goal for the end of 2021 is to be conversationally like fluent in Spanish, to be able to really hold conversations with people. So hopefully that works out well. I was using Duolingo every single day and had like almost a 300-day streak, but that was just not cutting it for me. I know the basics. I know how to ask the basic questions and respond to the basic questions, but if it gets anything more than like a few words in a sentence, it's just over my head. So yeah, I wanted to kind of make this a series about documenting life in Spain during the pandemic as an expat. And yeah, if it interests you, then I'm glad. If it doesn't interest you, that's fine. I understand it's a cybersecurity channel. It's just for me and for the people who are curious, I wanted to put it out there. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll continue this series once I have more things to update about it. And until then, ciao.